Welcome back to TikTok University, where we talk about kids, technology, and navigating the digital world. I'm your host, Kaylani, and today I'm excited to be joined by Katrina Fernandez. Katrina is a wife and a mom of four, with her youngest being 3 and her eldest being 8. She's a lifestyle content creator, influencer, and co host of the podcast Grace in Chaos, where she and her best friend share honest conversations about motherhood, family life, and faith. As a mom of four and a content creator, raising kids in the spotlight of social media and then being part of Gen Z and Gen Alpha, what has it been like being a parent in this digital age, and how do you navigate technology with your family?
I think my first impression is it's a little scary out there with all the information we have. And although that's empowering for us to make good choices, it's also overwhelming. Whether we like it or not, the technology is just around our kids at all times, right? I feel like when I grew up, it was as we grew older, technology kind of came part of our lives, and now it's just like at their fingertips from when they were toddlers almost, or even a smartphone of moms. It's like, oh, this is cool. Um, so luckily with my kids being younger, like I said, my oldest is 8. We haven't crossed over to like the social media world yet. So come back to me in a few years. But even just making decisions with tablets or screen time. When my kids were younger, they're so close in age. I think we introduced tablets pretty early, earlier than I would have thought we would have, just because I'm home by myself a lot. My husband works a ton. And so it's kind of that crutch to be able to help me take a deep breath and them have something to do. And then as we've gotten older, we've kind of done the reverse of like, okay, we've seen that this might not be the best for them. And so we've pulled back a lot more on what they're able to watch or even how long that they watch. And I think that's important as parents, just to always give yourself permission to make changes when you see fit, because sometimes you can just either want to be the yes mom or even just go down a route unintentionally and then realize, wait a second, I don't know if this is serving my kids the best. And so I think as a parent, that's just my biggest thing to other parents is like, you can change the way you do things at any time and just pivot and create new rules for your kids and things like that.
I can't imagine how that shift would have been for your kids from being able to be like on their tablet, like having unlimited usage of it, to transitioning to limiting what they can do, what they can watch, or even how long. So how was that transition for them and for you?
For example, one of those things was YouTube. We used to let them watch some YouTube, and then we realized just how vast that is. And sometimes they'd be watching a good show, and then it would turn into something else, and we'd look over and say, "What are you watching over there?" And it was just this thing that was so unpredictable that we're like, we need to just not do that at all. And I'd like to know exactly what you're watching and what platforms and things like that. That was hard because some of their friends still get to watch it and things like that, and so they'll question like, why can't we, and that. But we just try to explain to them that, you know through logic and just teaching, that we want to take care of their brains and that we want to fill their brains with good stuff. And sometimes something like YouTube or too much screen time isn't going to be the best for their brain and isn't going to be the best for resting and things like that, because um, as they're getting older, they're able to understand that a little bit more. It's still challenging, of course, and they still have their opinions, and they don't necessarily get it completely. But we'll show them the difference too, because it really does make a difference when you do less screen time or when you set limits and parameters at night or that sort of thing. Because like, we just want you to take care of yourself, and it's our job as your parents to teach you how to do that.
Yeah, you definitely want them to keep their brains intact until they're older, because I have seen stuff on social media where they're comparing someone's brain who's like doom scrolling a lot or using ChatGPT versus someone who doesn't, and the MRI of their brain is a drastic difference. And it's crazy because a lot of kids these days are using technology in that way, and then eventually they're going to be dependent on like social media or on ChatGPT, which is something we do not want.
Totally. And even my kids, I grew up at one point I had to fall asleep to the TV. And, probably more to unpack there. But my kids, they'll be like, why can't we fall asleep to the TV? And I'm like, you have to learn to be okay with nothing going on. I think in today's day and age, it's so easy for them to be stimulated and want that at all times. And that almost creates a calmness for them, which is not true, right? It makes sense because they've literally kind of created that to happen. But it's like, no, I want you to learn how to have quiet time and have everything off and learn how to relax when there's nothing going on and not just this constant stimulation. I mean, we do have four kids that are like 4 years apart. So there's always something going on in this house, whether it's a screen or just kids play. So there's stimulation at all times, and I'm like, the screen we could at least manage that.
Yeah, oh my goodness. I can't imagine what it's like having four kids. I am like only 22 myself, so I'm a while away from having kids in my plan, but I do picture like what it would be like. I don't think I would have four. My max is three, but ooh, that is a lot to manage, especially like as a working mom as well. You create content. You haven't exposed your kids to social media yet. So how do you manage that when your kids are like exposed online? Or what do you tell them since you post, you're on social media, but they're not allowed on there?
So I do, especially my older daughter, she's the 8-year old. I'll let her like look at my page so that she's understanding, especially when I have them do a video or a picture or something. I do want them to understand what this is. Um, but also just explaining to them the benefits of it. I know it can be scary in today's age just with having your kids online, and that is something that I think about. We don't post in real time or anything like that, but even just having their image out there is a whole can of worms. Um, so we do still choose to have them, in our content. But I do at least connect the dots for them as far as their effort, because now that they can understand what they're doing, and even if it's like a toy unboxing, it's kind of that gratitude of like, look what mommy's job gets for us to do. And then I just, it's like that reciprocal, like, I just need your help and you get this toy and then we're going to create a video and it will be fun. So always trying to create it as like a fun setting. And then, of course, if they don't want to do anything, it's never like a forced situation. It's just whoever wants to participate, especially with some of the things that I get. I do have that ability to be like, okay, who wants to help me with this? Versus just being like, hey, I need you to do this for me. And then also just shifting to, I do like that my niche is more lifestyle. So it doesn't always involve them. And so I get to do more things as like me, just a 30-year-old girl, but also like family, and it doesn't always have to involve them. It can be like a testimonial or things like that. So kind of just trying to keep that balance of working and then also just fun. But I'm also that mom that takes pictures of anything, no matter what. Like even if I'm just like, oh, I want to capture the moment, and that's kind of probably why I fell into this. So they joke, they're like, mom's always taking pictures and videos. I'm like, yeah, sorry.
And then you can tell them, well, this is our vacation, like our vacation's paid for, or this toy is paid for, or something in the house is like, it's free, kind of, like
Yeah.
free-ish. Yeah. When do you feel like your kids will be ready to be introduced to social media?
It's such a loaded question. Um, I want to say closer to high school, but all of that just makes me nervous thinking about it because I almost think that's the worst time. But I don't know. I think that we try to parent with a lot of trust and empowering them to make decisions for themselves, especially as they get older. So it's one of those things that in a perfect world, letting them, have social media when I feel like they're ready. I think that that's also such a personal and per child thing. For a while, my oldest daughter was asking for a phone for the longest. And I was like, well, you know that you're not gonna get, like, if I get you a phone, that's why we love our TikTok smartwatches, but like a phone, like you're not gonna have social media on it, because I think that's what they think sometimes. They have friends at school who already have phones and things like that. And I'm like, well, just know that even if you got a phone, it would be to contact us, not necessarily to have YouTube or TikTok or Instagram or any of those sorts of things. So I don't know. I'd like to say high school, but I also think that that's just going to be something that we figure out as we go.
And I also know that as the generations have gone by, even when I was in high school, there are clubs that use social media a lot to get to know the club, to maybe like be part of it or like another community. So I think that's another aspect where social media does help, but there are so many things that kids can be exposed to that they don't know is bad. So I think that's the part that's like the scariest about being like a parent and then not knowing what your kid is doing on social media.
Totally. And I do think that that's awesome. Like, especially even with like FaceTime, like we live in a different state than my kids' cousins, and they get to FaceTime all the time. And so, like, there are definitely positive things about technology and connecting online and things like that. I'm hopeful as time goes on, too, that there can be more apps that are, parental guidance or having restrictions and things like that. Because I know there are some that exist right now. But as this, this isn't going away. So it's like we kind of just have to adapt and figure out how to make it the safest tool possible for them.
And I think something that they don't understand is they feel like their parents are controlling or they're trying to take over their lives. But in reality, they don't know that there are like predators online. There's people that are trying to take advantage of them in other ways. Or I don't know, it's just really scary. Like bullying. Bullying is another big issue as well, and they don't know it.
Mhm.
They're just they're just young. Oh, have you seen anything online about maybe the community of mothers or creators, like content creator moms on social media? How is that community?
I think it's mostly supportive. I have connected with quite a few just through social media, because it's like, okay, you're doing the same thing as me. Especially not many of my friends necessarily do this. So you kind of create friendships online with those who are doing similar things. And then we get to move a lot, so it helps me to see like what other people are doing in other states and things like that. But for the most part, I would say everybody's pretty supportive and that sort of thing, and nice to see how other people are creative and make it work with their lifestyle.
Have you seen anything that's like, what would you say is the most rewarding part of being part of like the content creator community, but also being able to like spend time with your family, like having that balance in a way?
Yeah, no, I think it's awesome because we were chatting right before. It's like sometimes I forget that I even have a job, because I am able to go to all of my kids' things, everything at school. I'm grateful that I get to be the mom that's at every little jogathon or things like that. Like I don't have to request time off or anything. But sometimes that's a double-edged sword, because it's like I forget that it's a job, and then sometimes there's things that come up where I'm like, oh no, I have to get this done or it's due tonight, and it's hard because from their perspective, it's mom's just on her phone, right? And I'm like, okay, I want you guys to understand, I'm not just playing a game. Like I'm working, I'm editing, I'm submitting things, responding to emails. So that is, as much as it's a blessing that I'm able to just work from wherever, whenever, it's also can be challenging of turning that off, because there isn't really an off mode. I would say I've been doing this now for probably more full time for the past like 3, 4 years. And over the past like 1 or 2 years, I've gotten a lot better at setting boundaries for myself and just understanding like I have the personality type that just wants to get everything done right now. And just if I have a to do list, I want to check all that off. But just kind of learning that I get to create what's the most important thing in my life right now. So sometimes it's not getting this thing done, even though I feel that internal pressure that I need to knock it off the list. And just kind of putting that aside or creating blocks of time has been the most helpful for me, of just being like, okay, whatever I can get done in this chunk of time, then that's it. And then I'm just going to chalk it up, move forward, pick up the kids from school and be on mom mode, versus trying to like squeeze all the things in of trying to get stuff done.
I can see how communicating with your kids is incredibly important because they see that you are on your phone. And I had a podcast with Melvin Amador, who is the creative director from Parent Protect. And something we talked about was like monkey see, monkey do. When your kids see that you're on your phone and then you tell them not to be on their iPad or their tablet, they're like, well, that's kind of like hypocritical. When you do show your kids like on social media, is that something you were always comfortable with, or are there things that you like wouldn't show part of your like kids' lives on social media?
I am always careful on like how much I share about them as individuals, if that makes sense. So, I, as much as I think it's helpful when parents can share if their kid's going through a hard time or something like that, just from a parental perspective, I understand that. I am just super protective over them as individuals, that I don't want to share those types of things. So that is some like a boundary that I think I've always had, of just being kind of zoomed out. Like I will share them as the little kids that they are, but not necessarily like the ins and outs of who they are or their personality or their struggles or those sorts of things. We definitely share a lot. I do think at the end of the day, social media is a highlight reel. So we share a lot of like their good moments and those sorts of things. But I am very particular on just not sharing their struggles, I guess you could say.
Yeah, of course. And have they ever expressed their opinions about being on camera as well?
Not really. I think that they've always grown up with it. Um, and if anything, they've gotten to the point where they think it's cool, now that they understand it. Like, oh, and then it's kind of nice because we have all of these pictures and videos from when they were so little that
Hmm.
they can look back on. Like I said, I've always been somebody who takes a lot of pictures and videos, but it's also nice to have those little time capsules of like, oh, look how cute and little you were here. It is nice to share with them like the end product of when we do a video or something like that, and then I piece it together. Like my oldest daughter thinks that's the coolest part of how that all works and things like that. And it's nice for them to have that appreciation too, because you know they then can get the respect a little bit more about like what I'm doing when I'm on my phone, versus just being like mom's on her phone.
When they do get older, say high school or even college, and they kind of want to follow in your footsteps when it comes to UGC or content creation, how would you kind of introduce them or gradually like integrate them into this world?
I think that they'll probably end up knowing more than me before I know it, just because they'll be, surrounded by it more. And I would totally be okay with it, because I think it's one of those things that, if your parents are able to teach you some, and then you take that and run with it, then you can only learn more and grow. So, um, I would hope that they could maybe ask for some advice or things like that. But, sometimes I think it's hard coming from parents where they think they have all the answers. I don't know. My kids already have those traits. So I don't know how they'll be as teenagers or young adults of like, Mom, I got this. I know what I'm doing. But I think one of the biggest things too with,
Every kid, I feel like, is
yeah,
different.
especially as those teenage years, young adults. Um, but I think that's the biggest thing, that as much as we are clear communicators and try to teach them, it's also a lot of things are caught, not taught. And so we try to just lead by example, so that they have that foundation in them where if they're not even realizing it, they can kind of mimic what they've seen growing up, and how to do things like that. So I'm sure they'll still be stubborn in their own right, but
Of course, because especially coming from like a parent, they're like, like why should I listen to you? But that's just the nature I feel like of parents and like kids. Sometimes, just sometimes, not all the time. I am guilty of that myself with my mom even now.
Yeah,
But then as you get older, you realize like they're doing everything to protect you and like what's best for you. So, but that
absolutely.
also comes with getting older and more mature.
And I do think becoming a mom yourself, like I've opened my eyes to that.
You said that when you started your content creation and UGC journey, you were already a mom. Is that correct?
Yes.
Do you think it would have been different had you started it prior to having kids?
I do. I think I could have given it a little more attention. I think that that's been, a challenging thing is trying to navigate this career style while also being a mom because I'm a mom first, and so that's always going to take precedent over me growing on social media or taking on more campaigns or anything like that. So I do sometimes, and it's also one of those things where when you see other people, you can always connect the dots on what you think versus who knows what their reality is. But there's parts of me that would think it would be a little easier if you didn't have kids to start that journey and put more, energy into creating and things like that. Where for me, it's like I just have to find what fits into our existing lifestyle versus being, sometimes extra creative or even having those extra thoughts like mom brain is real. So sometimes it's like, oh, nothing's working up there right now. And so, it is nice when it does come to the point of being a creative outlet because that is the most fun thing about this. But there are times where it just feels like, okay, I just gotta get by right now or that
Yeah.
sort of thing, depending on how much is going on in life. So in ways, I do think it would be easier, but also it's everything happens the way it's supposed to, and I think that it's been a fun journey figuring it out alongside and making it fit. Versus, it would also probably be challenging if I had a well-oiled machine and then kids came into the equation and I had to readjust, right? That's different
Mhm.
too. So everything has its pros and cons.
And backtracking a little bit to how you limit like your kids' time on their tablet and YouTube, are there video games that they are allowed to play or like access on a computer? Like what does that look like in your households?
Yeah, so my son, he does have a PS5. He's our 7 year old. He does play Fortnite and Madden. Um, and it's kind of one of those bonding things you get to do with my husband. So they do that together. But that's another one that is definitely, we've had to be like, okay, this too much time staring at a screen. You might think you're just sitting down, but you're not actually resting. Sometimes they'll have a long day at school, and that's what he wants to do when he comes home. And so we've done all the different types of things of, no video games during the weekdays, or, maybe only for an hour versus just kind of letting him go, um, and those sorts of things. So again, it's trial and error though, because it's hard sometimes, when you see your kids enjoying something and they create some confidence in what they like doing, because he's somebody, I think when he says when he grows up he wants to be like a YouTube gamer. So it's
Ah,
like,
yeah.
okay, well, like I support that, but also you have plenty of time to refine that craft.
It's incredible how being a streamer and a gamer can be a full-time job. Like you can get paid five figures, six figures to be a streamer. I'm like, what?
Yeah, I
So
know
if
that
he
is
ends up going down that path,
we'll see, because that's a very unfamiliar world for me. I'm like, I don't know the streaming stuff of, the live streams and stuff, but I do know they're popular.
and what are some devices that you do use with your kids every day besides the games, besides a tablet? Do they have like the watches or do they have like a kid-friendly phone alternative?
Yeah, so we have like their tablets aren't iPads, they're the Fire, like the Amazon Fire Kindle kid versions of those, that they'll be able to do some like games or learning games on and stuff like that. They have their TikTok smartwatches, which are nice. Like when my older kids, they have a heavier sport schedule or club thing where now they're at the age where they can get dropped off solo. So I do really like that, them having a line of communication. Um, and then we use our Alexa a lot, just in the house. Um, and then my daughter had we tried a like non-smartphone phone for her, and it worked well, although I think it got our point across of the fact that she didn't really want a phone so badly. Because it didn't have all the
Mm.
fun things on it. It only had like the parent approved apps and things like that. And so after we got her that, she was like, I want my watch back. And I was like, yeah, see, it does the same stuff. So it was cute for her to realize that sometimes you have to do those things for them to understand. Like, you think you want this, but it's not as cool as you hype it up to be.
I'm glad she got to at least try it and decide for herself, like, oh,
Hmm.
this is what I want, or no, it's not what I want. Just give me the watch
Yeah.
back. What are some of your favorite features like on the TikTok watch?
Um, I mean the kids love the video call, which is funny.
Mm.
Because even if we're like at home, they'll be calling each other on their watches, which is fun. Until they get too close to each other.
Oh.
And then, the texting, not so much at their ages. It's not as exciting for them. But the video, and then even just the location tracking is nice feature. Sometimes we'll just double check, or even if like they're lost, like the watch itself, or we can't find it, I'll be like, okay, well I know it's in the house. um, but I would say the calling is the most like beneficial thing for us.
What advice would you give to parents who feel overwhelmed by technology and or social media?
I think that it's okay to just make the decisions that you want to make for you and your family. I think that's something we've told our kids from a very young age is every family does things differently. And that's helped us be able to respect the rules that we enforce, but also respect other people's rules, right? Like we don't judge other people for making their own decisions for their family because they're going to make decisions that work best for them. Um, and so I think that it's okay to just, if you don't have an answer yet, just to wait. I'd rather work with clarity than just like, okay, I don't know what I'm doing and go for it. Um, that's never seemed to work out in the past as far as just being like, okay, go for it. Um, but yeah, I think that just it's so hard today with seeing how everybody else is doing things, and there's 500 right ways to do things and wrong ways, and it's just a lot of opinions too. And there's a lot of information out there which can be helpful, but like you said, it can also be overwhelming. Oh, I'm like, well, it feels like anything I do is going to be a bad choice sometimes. But the biggest advice I give for any type of, whether it's technology or even like baby stuff, it's like as a parent, you know your child the best. So you know what they're able to handle and not. So I think that it's just always best to look inward and make those decisions based on what you know versus what all is out there.
And looking ahead, when your kids do have like that technology and that access to social media, do you think that you would still set particular boundaries or even like limitations on their phones, even when they reach college as well?
Well, I feel like college, so probably, well, maybe they won't be in my house, but who knows? Yeah, I think that if anything, that's something that we always try to teach them, the importance of being a disciplined person and setting your own, restraints on things, that everything's great in moderation, but even too much of a good thing can be a bad thing. And so I think we were trying to instill that in them now. So I hope that we don't stop doing that. And it's only going to continue as they get older, because I just think that's important for them to understand that it's okay to do these sorts of things, but it's not okay to just like scroll for hours on end, or, especially I like the ideas I've heard online of like checking in your phone at a certain hour, or no phones in bedrooms or things like that. So a whole new thing that we'll have to get to eventually. But yeah, I'm hopeful to still have some rules and boundaries around that as they get older.
That's exciting, and I'm very curious to see how your family will just evolve with this, say in like 5 years. Even 3 years can make like a really big difference with all of your kids getting older, and even the technology
Totally.
we have now, because AI is going to be in everything. So I can't
Yeah.
imagine how it's going to be from now. And was there any last regards you wanted to say at all, whether it's to parents, whether it's to our community?
I mean, I think I covered everything that I wanted to say. But we definitely are big fans of the TikTok smartwatches. All the kids love them. Like I said, my daughter even didn't want a phone after she was like, "Can I have my watch back?" Um, but I think that ultimately, what I said a few minutes ago, just about making decisions based off you and your family, is always the best route to go.
All right, well, thank you so much, Katrina, for joining on this podcast, and we can't wait to keep in touch with you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.